Economist and political scientist refute claims of US dollar's demise. Despite trend of de-dollarization news this year, there has been a flurry of news reports and opinion editorials discussing an alleged de-dollarization trend amid a wave of disclosures associated with the BRICS bloc. In a recent article, the American political scientist and author Ian Bremmer insisted that claims of the US dollar dying are overblown. In addition to Bremmer's comments, economist Paul Krugman also asserted in a recent op-ed that the greenback isn't going away anytime soon and called some of the speculators Weimarists, people who are always predicting hyperinflation. The dollar has three big advantages, the Nobel laureate said. One is incumbency, since everyone
US companies with exposure are seeing the downside of that. How much longer does this play out, given that we haven't really set up for a pivot, perhaps an eventual plateauing or a pause from the Fed? Do we see dollar strength until then?
You know, I think the two headlines for 2022 are really around the excess inflation that ramped into the global economy. And secondarily, it is that strong U.S. dollar, which I think caught a lot of investors by surprise. And we expect that strong dollar trend will continue at least into mid to early 2023. We believe that the strong U.S. dollar likely correlates with peak U.S. policy rates in early 2023, and it's likely not until then that investors get some relief from paying, for example, debt denominated in USD out of EM space.
At the same time, though, we have seen a more resilient, broader complex when it comes to emerging markets, especially here in Asia, especially in terms of where central banks in this region are really placed. Where do you see the pressure points, but also where would you see potential opportunities?
As you think about sort of, again, that EM complex, it's, I think, acceptable to look around sort of Asia and to look and see, again, whether it's opportunities from a global reopening that is, again, still taking effect, whether that be through Thailand, whether that be through Taiwan, whether it be through other areas. There are, I think, trades that still make sense tactically. That said, though, we do like the U.S. over the rest of the world, and I think that there is an opportunity for U.S. equities to continue to drive that leadership. That's been where we've been positioned over the last several years, and we think that U.S. overweight can continue to outperform tactically in 2023.
Todd, I just have to ask another question about the dollar, because you said you think it's going to hold its strength until early next year. Where are you going? What currencies are going to dominate after the dollar? The pound? The euro? Is it going to be, you know, that's, I'm just thinking, we may have the worst, what they call the dirtiest shirt in the closet, but it's cleaner than a lot of other ones.
I think what investors should likely look for in 2023 is a leveling off of a lot of the extreme movements that we've seen between global currencies in 2022. So I'm not expecting a strong set of rebound and recovery, say, from Japan or from Europe. In fact, we seem more likely to find a market where currencies are relatively stable for a period of time. Perhaps you see that as global central banks begin to together at the same time ease off of their pace of tightening, that could give a bit of a respite. Overall, I think that multi-asset investors have to look and say, what kind of risk do I want to put into currencies? Currencies have been quite a surprise market in 2022. We expect perhaps a bit more calm in 2023.
You know, another one of your points you make, because everyone's talking about, oh, the big pullback and the big 5 mega cap tech stocks, right? You say that mid cap stocks are well positioned. Why do you like them, and what should investors be doing there?
You know, the interesting thing there is valuation. When you look across global equities, it becomes pretty apparent that the pockets of high valuation are pretty narrow. In fact, they're just limited to that mega cap U.S. space is really where you see above average valuations. Now, conversely, looking at both mid caps and small caps in the U.S., you do find, one, they trade at a lower valuation than large caps. So you could rotate, for example, and get into a much better long-term valuation perspective on mid caps. And U.S. mid caps offer more domestic focus. And in an environment where earnings repatriation and other forces have made transnational earnings a bit under pressure, we think more of a domestic focus that exists in U.S. mid caps can result in more of a steady, predictable earnings stream in 23.
When you take a look at broader structural shortages, where are there still opportunities even as we kind of ease out of the period of easier money?
Well, when you think about structural shortages and you think about the path towards easy money, one of the things that we've certainly focused on has been for fixed income investors and what exactly, sort of happens with the investment grade and non-investment grade components of the market. Now, interestingly, while equity investors have certainly priced in the potential for recession in 2023, we have not yet seen the kind of movement in spreads, either in the high yield space or in the IG space, that suggests that debt investors are indeed concerned about recession in 2023. When we think about opportunities today, one, I'd watch out for where you see spreads beginning to move. That could be an area where you could see some consternation. But through that, opportunity exists, I think, from finding those kind of long-term winners that can distinguish themselves as firms relative to their competition.
Okay, we've got to give you our M-Live, our Markets Live question now. What is the most bullish midterm outcome for stocks?
Well, historically speaking, the most bullish result from the midterm elections in the U.S., at least from an investor perspective, would be a divided government. The U.S. typically does better when you have a lack of consensus on the direction, and what you end up getting is essentially a bit more static political landscape. And when investors know what...
Please subscribe our channel and like, share Expo Bitcoin.